What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Believe I'm Heat. Brought to Believe Network. I'm your host, Anthony DiNardo. I don't know why I always do the intro so fast. I guess it's kind of my thing at this point. But anyways, we got a long episode of my long-form podcast today. So as always, timestamps are down below. But anyways, the Miami Heat do play in the Las Vegas Summer League semifinals. That game is today versus the Golden State Warriors, where the Heat have a chance to get some revenge. Because the Warriors, I believe, are the only team to beat this Heat All-Star team in Summer League. It was the very first game of the California Classic, and they kicked our ass. Now, I will say, going into this game, no Keshad Johnson likely, but they didn't have him the last game versus the Raptors, and we bust they ass. And also, it's just a Summer League, so if they lose, whatever. I mean, it'd be nice if they win. I think they get one more game, which would be the championship. And at this point of the dead off season, the more games, the better. Certainly gives me more things to talk about, but that's not what I'm here to talk about today. Because yesterday I dropped the video talking about who should get the Heat's two-way spots, because there's a lot of controversy in that regard, because the Heat have a lot of nice young talent. So what I want to talk about today is how that young core stacks up with the rest of the league as far as futures. So I'm going to kind of go through every team here. Not every team. And if I don't talk about that team, it means they really don't have a young core. Like, we're not going to talk about the Lakers. We're not going to talk about the Bucks. So I'm really only counting teams that have a decent, core of guys under 25. That is what I'm counting as young. So if I don't mention your favorite player, if I don't mention Jokic or Giannis, it's because they're over 25 years old. I'll mention some guys who are close, because technically if you're 26, you're still part of the future. But just for the purposes of this video, keep in mind young core, 25 or under. Starting with the Miami Heat, we'll go through these guys kind of quick because I've been talking about them ad nauseum over the last month. But you got Khalil Ware, Pallel Larson, Zion Poulin, who currently is on a two-way contract, although that should go to Isaiah Stevens, who the Heat also have. They also got Keshad Johnson on the two-way contract. Nikola Jovic, who does seem like he'll be ready for the Olympics with Serbia, or the potential's there. Because obviously he did have an ankle injury, if you didn't hear. Now it sounds like he might be ready, which is great news, because the USA's first game officially is actually against Serbia. They played once in a friendly, Bam balled out, hit like 3 threes, but they do play the first official game, so it'll be cool if we could see some Bam/Jovic. And obviously Jovic, he went from DNP coach's decision the middle of last year to being the starting power forward by the end of the season and playing pretty well. So I do think going into next season, he's currently slotted as a starting four. I like the idea of that. I think him and Bam work well together. And if Jovic continues to show that he can run an offense, call me crazy. Maybe the Heat put Jovic at the point, Bam at the 4, Khalil Ware at the 5. Oh, you get some size. There's size, and then there is size. Pause. I know y'all going to be saying pause in the comments. But I don't know. Get the lineup with 3 6'10" dudes, Spo. Let's have some fun. Regardless, you also got Kamehame Jaquez Jr. Showed that he was a man against boys in the Summer League. Obviously, I love him. Straight buckets. Then you got Josh Christopher, who is the other guy I'd like to get the final two-way spots. And you also got guys like Cole Swider and Alonzo Williams. Not on standard deals, but those guys have proven that they can score at a pretty elite level as well. And then we didn't mention Tyler Hero. He is still under 25, and I know we give him a lot of crap, but I've never said he's a bad player. I said I don't like his fit on this team, particularly in the starting lineup. But he still is a kind of a 3-level scorer. Doesn't get to the rim well, but we know he can get his shot off. We know that he's an excellent shooter, and he is one of the best players in the entire league under 25. So let me show some respect to him. Bam is 27, just turned 27 like a week ago, less than a week ago. So obviously he's a part of our young future, but he's not under 25. So I think things are bright for Miami. But let's see how that stacks up with the rest of the league. We'll go to the Boston Celtics here. Their main two guys, Tatum and Brown, they're 28 and 26 years old, respectively. They're locked into extensions for a long time, along with Derek White. So, yes, that team has a bright future. But as far as their young core, the only guys they have under 25 is former Heat Summer League legend Drew Peterson, Xavier Tillman, who I was stunned to hear is 25. I thought that boy was like 32. And then they also got Jaden Springer, who killed the Heat in the Summer League, along with their first-round pick this past year, Baylor Shireman, who I do like a lot out of Creighton, a very versatile point guard. But I don't think that young core is better than the Heat's. Moving on, you got the Knicks, who have Tyler Kolek, their draft pick from this past year, balling out in the Summer League. He's a true point guard himself. And they did take a Frenchman, Pacome Dadiet, who is sort of like he's a project, a bit of a project, but seems like he could be a pretty versatile wing/forward as well. But that's their young core. I mean, their main guys are obviously relatively young. Anunoby, Brunson, Mikal, they're all around 27 years old. So they have a bright future, but their young core isn't currently better than Miami's. The 76ers, they had a couple nice draft picks this year with Jared McCain. He's only 20. And Adam Bona, who is 21. He's kind of a big man, which that's one of Philly's biggest weaknesses over these last several seasons is when Embiid goes to the bench, they have no one that can back him up. So if Adam Bona is a guy that could play maybe 20 minutes a night now, I think that's a big help for them. And Jared McCain has been inconsistent in the summer league. The memes are hilarious. They're like, McCain, we need you to hit a game winner. And then Jared McCain, insert TikTok dance. They're funny. I do like Jared McCain, though. But obviously, the main guy here is Tyrese Maxey, 23 years old. I think he will be a superstar, borderline superstar in this league, if not already. And he's certainly better than anyone the Heat have over 25 or under 25. So for him alone, you could argue the 76ers have a better core. But right now, they don't have much outside of him. The Toronto Raptors, I know the Heat just kicked their ass in Summer League with Jacoby Walter and Jamal Sheed, two guys that I do like a lot. Well, Jacoby Walter, he's a bit of a project too. He's sort of an inefficient shooting guard. But Jamal Sheed, I like him. You know, tough, rugged point guard. Not great timing considering he literally got a flagrant 2 for punching Cole Swider in the nuts on a closeout. But I think he's a good player. Watch out for Jamal Sheed. They also got Grady Dick. But most importantly, Scotty Barnes. That kid is going to be so good, if not already. Had a bit of a sophomore slump, but he did pick it up this past season. He's obviously very versatile, can defend. The shooting is getting better, but he can score nonetheless. He's awesome. And I'm not super huge on RJ Barrett, although he did have a nice second half of the season for them. Same with Emmanuel Quickly. So they have a nice young core. I probably would say it's better than the Heat just because they do have Scotty Barnes in addition to a few other guys. Moving on to the Cavaliers, you got Evan Mobley, who just re-signed on a max extension. Darius Garland as well, so a former All-Star there. And then Isaiah Okoro, who I think the Cavs are probably ready to move on from. Obviously, the Cavs have a nice future with Mitchell and Jared Allen, but they are a little bit older than 25. But I would say the Cavs have a better young core than the Heat. I mean, Mobley is going to be so good. That kid, I think he's going to be a star too. Maybe not offensive, but defensively, obviously. He's already showing that. And I do like Darius Garland as well, although he has some injury concerns. And they also question his fit with Donovan Mitchell. So maybe Garland goes to another spot. Maybe he comes to the Heat. No, who knows? The Detroit Pistons, their young core consists of almost the entire team. I like guys like Isaiah Stewart, but really their 3 best young prospects now. It's probably Ron Holland, who they just drafted. He's going to be a project also, but a 6'8 guard that could get to the rim at will. He has the potential to be very tough. Jalen Duran, center, who was balling out for them last year. A bit old school, can't really shoot, but his numbers were obviously pretty good last year, particularly rebounding, blocking shots. And then Cade Cunningham, who could be a borderline all-star in this league if he could get his shooting together as well. So I guess I'd say they have a better young core than the Heat because it's their entire team. And theoretically, they have a few pieces that might be better than what the Heat have. But then again, if you tell me Jaime Jaquez turns into a better player than Cade Cunningham, it wouldn't shock me. I don't know. It wouldn't shock me the way that Jaime is ascending and Cade he's had a lot of injury concerns, so he's been kind of staying level. But moving on here, we have the Indiana Pacers, who I will immediately say have a better young core than the Heat because they have Tyrese Halliburton, who I think that kid is going to continue to be a stud. The shooting kind of fell off a cliff to end last season, but he's shown he's a guy that can put the ball in the hoop and he can shoot the ball. It's in the 3-point contest, but he'll always be an elite facilitator. His numbers there are ridiculous. And then they got so many other guys with great experience, like, just in the last season alone. I know Benedict Mathurin was hurt, but he's a good player. But you got Andrew Nembhard, Jarris Walker, Isaiah Jackson, Ben Shepherd. All those guys played really well in some pretty big games. So for that reason, I'd say they have a better core than the Heat. The Hawks certainly have one player who's better than anyone on the Heat's young core because Trae Young is still 25 or under. I like him a lot. Obviously, I've been saying I want him on the Heat, but it does look like the Hawks are going to retain him, at least for now. They drafted Zachariah Richache, number 1 overall in the draft. He's had an okay summer league, the 3-and-D wing, if you guys are not familiar there. And then if I could get back to my notes here because I just clicked out, they also have Onyeka Okongwu, the guy that I heard might be the next Bam Adebayo. And he's kind of been an okay player since he came in the league a few years ago and never progressed. Now, they just traded for Dyson Daniels because they traded DeJounte Murray, got Dyson Daniels in return. I'm not high on him. I know some people are. But I do like Nikola Jurisic, which is actually the guy the Heat took in the second round, but traded that pick to the Hawks, and instead the Heat got Pallel Larson. He looks like he can be a very good, versatile guard as well. Great passer, can shoot a little bit, but he is a bit of a project himself. The Charlotte Hornets, again, another team who's all the young core. They just drafted that Tamaje Challenge, 6'9" kid that could shoot. He's very young. We'll see how he can go. LaMelo Ball, I think, was an all-star. His biggest thing is injury concerns, but we know when he's healthy, he's a stud. Mark Williams, a great big man. Nick Smith Jr. seems like he's promising into a great role player himself. Josh Green had some nice moments with Dallas. Trey Mann, they got for basically nothing from OKC. I think he was in like the Davis Bertans trade. So like the Trey Mann was attached as an incentive. He showed great moments when he did play with OKC. And then obviously Brandon Miller is a stud, was great in the Summer League this year, although Jaime Jaquez was much better than him. And they do also have, what else was I going to say? Okay, I was going to mention they added Taj Gibson. So I like how that team added a vet. I think that's important for these young guys. You know, it's obviously Gibson's not part of their young core, but I think he can help shed some experience to those young guys. I kind of like that the Hornets did that. I think most teams should do that as well. But I'll say alone because of LaMelo Ball and Josh Green, they got a better young core than the Heat, as they should, because they've had 100, and Brandon Miller, because they've had 100 lottery picks in the last 5 years. You have the Orlando Magic, Anthony Black. Okay, I thought he was going to be better. He's still very young at the point guard spot. But Jalen Suggs, great defender. Paulo Banchero, obviously all-star, going to be one of the best players in this game. Jet Howard, Juwan Howard's son, has really picked it up in the Summer League in the second half of last year. Phenomenal shooter. Then obviously Mo Wagner, they just gave a boatload of money to. Not Mo. Franz Wagner, his brother is Mo. They gave a boatload of money to him. He's awesome. They got a couple of bigs. Wendell Carter Jr. has been decent. And Goga Batadze, who was a former lottery pick too. I threw him in there because he's still young enough. Maybe he could turn into something great, but he's just been okay so far. They obviously got Jonathan Isaac, who played really well last year after finally coming back from injury. Might be one of the best defenders in the league. He's 26 though, but I would definitely say the Magic have a young core. You talking Franz and Paulo, those dudes are tough. Moving on here, the Washington Wizards have Bilal Coulibaly, another Frenchman who was really good, underrated rookie last year, kind of in Washington, hidden, so not a lot of people were talking about him, but he's a good player. They took Alexander Sarr, second in the draft. That boy shot 0 of 15 in the Summer League, literally 7-footer, which is ridiculous. You're 7 feet tall. Take a layup, bro. He was so bad, he literally changed his jersey number after the game, shot 1 for 6 the next game. Unbelievable. I'm not saying he can't be a good player. He very likely will be. He's been a decent defender, but 0 of 15 is 0 of 15. They also got Jordan Poole, who I don't like, but Keyshawn George, my guy from University of Miami, just drafted him, as well as Bub Carrington in the first round. That kid is like 18. He is cold as hell. He is so smooth. That kid's going to be good. Remember that name for sure. They got a couple of other guys under 25, Corey Kispert and Sadiq Bey. A couple of guys that I think could be nice role players in this league. But yeah, they got a better young core than he, I would say for sure. When you're talking between Coulibaly and Bub Carrington, I'll give Sarr the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, that team they got some nice young pieces. The Wolves, obviously better. Anthony Edwards, enough said. And on top of that, Nickeil Alexander-Walker balled last year. Jaden McDaniels, a couple of great defenders. And Naz Reid is obviously a hooper. Shout out to Luka Garza as well. I love that kid coming out of college. He just seems like he's too slow to play in the league, but he's a bucket. So I wanted to shout him out. But yeah, of course, the Wolves have a better young core than the Heat because of Anthony Edwards alone. Moving on to OKC. Needless to say, they have a better young core than the Heat. Because of the 1,000 draft picks, they got like 17 middle schoolers. They're scouting right now. But surprisingly, I will say, Shea is already 26, so he doesn't technically fit in here. They just got Isaiah Hartenstein, who's very young still, but he is 26. So the guys that they have that are under 25 are still great. Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Joe, Kaysen Wallace, Nikola Topic, they just drafted. He'll be a project, but maybe in 3 years, when he recovers from the ACL next year and starts to get a little bit of improvements. That young core is ridiculous. They're going to be very scary for years to come. The Trailblazers do not have a better young core than the Heat because Joe Cronin is a petty bum who got what he deserved, and karma was a B for him. Drafted Donovan Clingan, been a good shot blocker in the summer league. Not much else. Scoot Henderson sucked last year. He's still only like 19, and he didn't play in the summer league. That makes no sense to me. That kid needed development. He should have been in the summer league. Anthony Simons is good. Jaden Sharp, I think, is pretty good as well. But DeAndre Ayton, they seem to hate over there. That guy is soft as what is something that's soft? A pillow? I don't know. That boy's ass. They do not have a better young core than the Heat. Moving on, the Utah Jazz. The entire team is young. Colin Sexton, Keontae George, my guy that I wanted, Isaiah Collier. Also got Cody Williams. They took Kyle Filipowski. That guy seems like a weirdo. If you know, you know. If not, go look it up. Kind of feel bad for him, though. It was a grooming situation, if you're not familiar. But you can look up more details. I guess I kind of feel bad for him in that regard. But Talen Horton-Tucker, Lakers fans used to think he was the next Michael Jordan. He's kind of mid. But they also got Walker Kessler. John Collins is only 26. Markkanen is only 27. So bright young future and a lot of guys under 25, obviously. I didn't even mention Kenny Lofton Jr. He ended the season with them last year. I don't know if he's technically with them now, but that's that big boy who got the great footwork. And y'all know I love that. So I had to shout out Kenny Lofton. But yeah, I think they got a better young core. I mean, they got too many young guys that with too much potential for me to say they're not better than the Heat. Although Jaime Jaquez is definitely better than all those guys currently under 25. But I'll say that was close. Debatable, I'll say. Moving on. Golden State Warriors, the three guys everyone talks about, Kuminga, Brandon Porzingis, has one of the best nicknames in the NBA, AirPods, and obviously Moses Moody. Kuminga had a very good stretch last year, and obviously AirPods looks like he'll be great. But personally, I put out a pretty controversial tweet a couple weeks ago where I said Jaime Jaquez will be better than Jonathan Kuminga. If you disagree, debate me in the comments. But I'm gonna leave it at that. I think the Heat have a better young core. The Sacramento Kings just drafted Devin Carter, who he tore his shoulder out, so he's going to miss some time. That sucks for him, but he looks like a great player. Kevin Huerter was under 25, surprisingly. Great shooter, along with Keegan Murray, who is an elite shooter. And De'Aaron Fox is only 26. Sabonis is only 27. The future is bright. And as far as a young core, it's nice. I don't know if it's better than the Heat, but Keegan Murray alone is tough. Don't sleep on him. But yeah, they got a nice young core. Probably not as good as Miami's, though, I'd say. The Mavericks, Jaden Harvey. Some people are high on him. Still very young. But Derek Lively obviously balled out last season. You're hoping Khalil Ware could provide something similar for the Heat. Daniel Gafford and P.J. Washington are under 25, which really surprised me. They had great seasons last year. And then the Mavs have some guy named Luka Doncic. Yeah, the Mavs have a better core than the Heat. I don't need to discuss that any further. That is obvious. And just looking at this now, I can tell you right now, best young core in the NBA. Best by far. I mean, that team with Ant, though, because they had Ant and Jaden McDaniels, that will, and Nikhil and Nas. So far, it's between the Wolves and the Mavericks. We'll see when I finish this who I think has the best young core. It could be the Rockets. I heard people saying that. I mean, Amen Thompson looks like a stud. Was getting like a couple triple-doubles last year. You also got Reed Shepherd balling in the G League. Jalen Green really took off after having that kid last season. Cam Whitmore's been pretty nice. Heat fans are mad that we took Jaime Jaquez over him. That's stupid. Jaquez is a better player, although Cam is good. Jabari Smith played very well last year. Shot the three, great defender. Alperen Şengün. Oh, damn. That young core is tough, man. And they got Tari Eason as well. I don't know. Between Reed and Amen and Jabari and Jalen Şengün, they don't have a Luka or an Ant, but that they might have a better young core than. All right, so far it's between the Mavs, Rockets, and Timberwolves. We'll see when this is over. Now the Memphis Grizzlies, Zach Edey. I've been on record. I'm not very high on him. He's been decent in the summer league, although I think he just got hurt. They also took Cam Spencer. He was their second-round pick. I want to shout him out. I liked him in the second round for the Heat, too. He's kind of a ready-to-play-now player. Won a championship with UConn. He's a good player, so keep out an eye for him. But really, Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, they're 26, so they don't technically count here unless was Bane just 20? How old is Ja Morant? Oh, Ja Morant's 24. Okay, so I think my notes is wrong. Morant and Jaren Jackson are underage. Shoot. They're overage. Josh Giddey just got excited right now. They're under 25. Desmond Bane is the one that's 26. So, damn, that Grizzlies got a nice young core too then. That don't even count G.G. Jackson and Vince Williams, who really stepped up last year when everyone was hurt. Those guys kind of hooped, so I guess they're part of their young core too. G.G. Jackson specifically was like 12. He is a guy that was like underage. Now he's youngest. I think he's the youngest player in the league, actually. At least he was last year because he was 18, surprisingly. But damn, we got 3 in a row for contenders for best young core. Rockets, Mavs, and Grizzlies, and then throwing the Timberwolves in there. That's tough. Moving on to the Pelicans, though. Zion Williamson, he's obviously better than anyone the Heat have under 25. I love him. I know there was some injury concerns. Played 80 games last year, something crazy, but then got hurt in the postseason. Sucks, bro, because I do like Zion. I also love their first-round pick, Yves Missy. He's like a Clint Capella mold. Very, very nice defender. They got Jordan Hawkins. He's also out of UConn, I think. People love him. People are super high on him. I'm not. He's an inefficient shot chucker. Right? I don't get it with him. I don't love him, although a lot of people would. But Trey Murphy, gotta love him. He's kind of the whole reason that the Pelicans are talking about trading Brandon Ingram, although Ingram is only 26, so he doesn't count in this video's young core, but he still is young. But Trey Murphy is a hooper. That boy can defend. That boy can shoot his ass off. And I also want to note how they have Jamal Cain, because I love Jamal Cain on the Heat. You know, I thought he was a good 3-and-D player. The Heat apparently valued some other guys instead. They valued Drew Smith instead. Make it make sense. Regardless, he's on the Pelicans. But yeah, they got a nice young core. I'll say it's better than the Heat's just because Trey Murphy and Zion, those are probably better than what the Heat got. And lastly here is the San Antonio Spurs. They also have a better core than the Heat. Wembanyama alone might make me want to say it's the best, but I won't put it with the Grizzlies, Rockets, Mavs, or Timberwolves just yet. Although outside of Wemby, who, is going to be incredible, already is. They just drafted Stephon Castle. They have Devin Vassell, excellent shooter. Jeremy Sohan, I don't know what the Spurs' plan for him is because he ran some point guard last year and then he ran some center. But he's a very decent player right now. Nothing too crazy. Same with Keldon Johnson, who it looks like the Spurs are trying to move on from, although he just scored like 20 points a night a couple of years ago. He's still very young, obviously. And they still have Trey Jones, excellent point guard. And I want to talk about Juan Nunez. He was, I believe, their second-round pick this year. And I remember when when the Spurs took Stephon Castle, I was surprised. I thought they'd go more with the playmaking guard who can get Wemby the ball. And then I completely understood why they took Castle, because Castle's more of a defender at this stage of his career. But Juan Nunez is that point guard. If you're not familiar, go see some of his highlights. He's like a Milos Teodosic type, a Ricky Rubio type, one of those Spanish guards that could facilitate their ass off. When Chris Paul's getting his rest, and Chris Paul's going to get to train Juan Nunez too, that's tough. Don't forget I told y'all about Juan Nunez. But yeah, they have a better core than the Heat. But that's all the teams that I was going to talk about here. I don't know how many we discussed, but it looks like it was at least 20. So we got to most of them. Obviously, we're not going to talk about the Lakers. Austin Reeves is probably their best young player. He's 26. I understand Giannis and Jokic are still relatively young, but I'm not counting them as part of a young core at this point. So that's why we didn't talk about some of these other teams here. But the best, to be honest, I would go with the Mavs right now. PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford were too good last year and too young. And then you compare that with Luka, who is definitely the best player between him and Ant and I guess anyone the Rockets had, and he's obviously better than the Grizzlies, John Morant. So I would probably say the Mavericks have the best. I would say they have the best core, young core. But there's, as you saw in the video, we probably mentioned maybe like 8 or 9 that were better than the Miami Heat. So that's not bad, considering you're a Heat team that wants to try to win a championship right now. But you also have maybe the 8th or 9th best core in the entire league. Maybe it was even 10th. I don't know, but. See, now you're starting to talk about being like an average young core. And it's like, that's why you don't half-ass a rebuild, man. Like, if you're going to go all in, go all in. Trade all the young kids to win now. If not, trade Jimmy. Get the picks. Get some young assets and try to build for the future. I think they need to pick a direction, and that's kind of what I'll leave y'all with here. That being said, make sure to like the video and subscribe because the growth has been crazy, and I can't do it without y'all. Let me know down in the comments below Was I tripping on anything? Do y'all think I said a young core was better? That clearly isn't. Did I forget anyone? Did I disrespect another team? I'll be reading all y'all comments down below. I'm looking forward to the Heat Summer League game today. I'll see y'all with a post-game reaction after that. So peace out, y'all.
Look, pull up in your city, tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.